Hello. Can you guys hear me? Am I audible? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Um, how many of you have women in the home who shop online? Okay, I think half of you raised your hand, so you'd relate to what I'm going to share. So I live with my wife and my mom, and 2 years ago, there were couriers coming on a regular basis at home, and since COVID has started, there's this additional duty that's called added to all folks who are working from home to collect those couriers, when they're as and when they come. So life was easy 2 years back. Mostly couriers would come from Amazon or Ajio in my case. But the last couple of years, I get introduced to a new brand every week. I haven't heard about a lot of them, and hence, of course, I have to now research what this brand offers. But it's amazing how consumers have started adopting D2C brands. They're not shopping from marketplaces, they're shopping from these websites directly. And why not? Because you are getting experience which is tailor-made, personalized for you. I don't think an Amazon would go to the lengths at which a D2C brand would to engage and retain their loyal customer base. So that's why we are here today, and I'm really privileged to be moderating this panel with the big weights in the D2C world. I have with me Sneha from Vedam Teas, Anchal from Lenskart, and Abhishek from
Hi
Plum.
everyone.
Welcome you all. We will try and answer some of the questions that online business heads and marketeers are grappling with. Um, okay, so to begin with, Sneha, I'd like to ask you, uh, D2C brands are not just sticking to their websites as the core channel of selling. They are now venturing into marketplaces, they are venturing into offline branded stores, social commerce. How do you make the business case for these movements? Is it top line, bottom line? Is it market share?
So good evening everyone. See, the savory answer to this question is it's all driven by customer centricity, right? You just follow wherever the customer goes. But the real answer to this question is also that you follow wherever the customer goes. Once you've acquired a customer, as a brand, the last thing you want to do is let go of that customer, right? So if the customer goes offline, you go offline. If the customer wants to buy from an Instagrammer, you just do social commerce, right? Or if a customer says, hey, like in the case of Lenskart, that I want my specs at home, you actually open an at-home channel, right? So as long as the principle is following the customer, I think the business case, both from a top line and a bottom line, gets justified. Of course, if you end up winning like softer things like loyalty of the customers, etc., I'm not even counting those into the benefits. But truly, for at least for us as a brand, it's all about stay in line with where the customer is moving. And I'll just elaborate on that for a second. So when COVID happened, right, everybody just rushed to buying online. And as COVID is now hopefully behind us, we are seeing a lot of customers go back out, right? And they want to have the same experience in a store. So as a D2C brand, it's very, very critical for us to start building our offline presence while ensuring that we deliver the same kind of experience that we did from our website. So yeah.
But haven't you got into difficult conversations where the CFO would step in and say, why spend so much money on opening this new channel? Didn't you go through those difficult conversations?
Yes and no. I think as long as, at least with startups, if you're able to show a very clear revenue path in the short run and a profitability path in the medium run, most of those conversations become easier.
Okay. So you're saying go where the customer is going. Anchal, Abhishek, any other views on this?
I think uh, the consumer is omni, right? And brands also need to be omni. Uh, no consumer of tomorrow is either going to stay offline or online. And that's why if consumers are shopping offline through a physical store or they are engaging online. Both of these pieces become very important. And I heard in one of the panel discussion that each of these places, they are like a funnel for the second place. So offline can be a place for acquisition of consumers, and they can become your regular or a repeat buyer through online medium in future, or the vice versa. So I think from that point of view, all these channels which you're referring in terms of social or offline or online, all of these are like extended partners, and you need, as a brand, you need to be omnipresent with them.
All right. So, this brings me to my next question. This is for you, Aanchal. Is the dominant customer behavior even today research online, buy offline?
See, I think there's no obviously singular answer to a question like that. But I think there are a couple of very mega sort of shopper trends in terms of the shopping behavior, if I can call them trends, both global as well as in India, which is what actually is changing the game. And that's why I think most of the brands are constantly trying to make sense of things, trying to get ahead of the curve, but sometimes they're able to, sometimes they're not able to. So for example, when you say, research and buying, right, this is actually a mental model for when we've decided I need to buy a new mobile phone, I need to buy a pair of formal shoes today, or I'm looking for some new furniture, study table, etc. So I think where the quest is very purposive, that I am going to buy this today or this week, or this is a new television for your guest room. There, sure, you will look at a concentrated research, whether it is, and that is also because online is generally easy for research for anything. I think it happens, but also the good old, you're asking your references, asking your colleagues, asking on WhatsApp groups, a couple of people. I think that behavior is there. What has happened is that browsing and sharing has become a huge behavior on its own, and that is based on your interest areas, and sometimes not even your interest areas. So none of us actually, even as people, we actually know how much we browse, right? And like a big behavior even in a very functional platform like Amazon is actually people who just keep browsing it, because you just keep seeing more range. You go, you check out something, you're getting bored for 10 minutes waiting for someone, you're doing something before going to sleep. And that is actually a big game changer. When you find something really cool, you want to share it with your friends, so, on WhatsApp, or, post it on Insta, whatever it may be. And what that changes is this whole very utility-led way of going and shopping, versus, where you're constantly sort of browsing, sharing, checking out something cool that somebody else has shared. So that has fundamentally changed the way a buyer consideration is formed. So awareness and consideration is getting formed independently, even when you're not looking for something. And that's why, buying on impulse, oh wow, there is a cool camera which can capture a 360-degree view, because you've just discovered it. You saw some of your friends who have bought it. You got, the online experience was great in terms of getting that your money will be fine. If something happens, they'll take care of it. And so I think those kinds of behaviors is what is actually becoming highly channel agnostic, right? And I think Apple is one of the best examples till date, where, in India still it doesn't have that cool experience, but in many other countries where people hang out in Apple, right? So it has become so much about consumer experience that it's completely channel agnostic. It is about the consumer's or a person's fundamental experience with as many Apple products as you want. And if you have a great experience, you're generally going to buy from wherever. So I think that is actually more than researching and buying. It's kind of, the new kind of user journeys, the new kind of user behavior, and making sense of that from a brand's perspective is where I think a lot of complexity, good complexity, is lying.
Okay, so browsing and sharing is the mega trend that you shared. Let me flip the question for you. How big is this use case that a customer would actually walk into a Lenskart store, research and figure out what they'd want to buy, but not order there, go back and order online?
See, for eyewear, actually, one of the important things before I answer the question to notice, and which will happen for any category which has a genuine need for human assistance. So, just to share a statistic that more than 90% people actually do not have their prescription before they walk into a store, right? So, actually, one of the essential parts of whenever you are thinking of buying eyeglasses is at some point to get your eyes tested within the store that you have chosen, and therefore then go for selection, etc. With that kind of a knowledge, now what happens is there are two parts, and I'll answer that again in Lenskart's context. For us, the app is actually much more of an experience zone. So the sales through app are also increasing rapidly, there is no doubt about it. But also people make their own short lists, people take a lot of pictures, people share it with, so people do all of that a lot. So about 70%, I mean, we acquire new customers every week, and 70% are repeat every week on an optical website to check out new frames, new collections, whatever else they want. So that is very big. And then of course, when they go to the stores, they are more familiar about the brand, they're more familiar about the lenses, they're more familiar about pricing, about new collections. Sometimes they have shortlisted pieces that they definitely want to check out. Sometimes they've generally, I like the overall experience that this brand offers, and I know what to expect, and it takes that kind of unknownness out of the experience for them. So experiences get processed in many ways. If you actually develop the right kind of digital experiences, even offline experiences. And I don't have that number with me right now, but there are a lot of people actually who check out the products, take their product IDs, and they do order that product online later. Because one is because they said most of the times it is, I want to show it to my wife or husband, or just share it with my family and then I'll order it. Many times actually, which is what they don't do in the store, but we have a feature where you can just scan the QR code and you can see more colors and more sizes in the same product. So, and then it is about, so store gives you an option, I can place the order for you, or they say, no, I've gotten it, I wanted it in blue color, I'll place the order. So even online getting order placement, and if you see in Decathlon is also doing this quite well in the stores. So this whole idea of, where can one medium come and create a positive or a surplus kind of experience, it's quite interesting. Whereby, so you take the negative labor out of the process. So where it was tedious to try so many glasses, maybe I want to first see 300 glasses in virtual try on my face. But then I want to try those 10, 15 glasses because that's not negative labor. I want to do eye test, but I don't want to wait for it. Tons of experiences, right? Okay, then, you can take an appointment online. So if you've taken it for 3 o'clock in a Lakshmi Nagar store near your house, then at 3 o'clock you can go, you don't need to wait, and your eye test will happen. And similarly, the order placement. A lot of people, we introduced in COVID times, repeat your order. And it gets used very aggressively by our repeat customers. So your glasses broke. Suddenly, you forgot them somewhere, which happens with all of us, especially with kids. There was once these twins who, for some reason, their parents had bought them 4 eyewear each, and they still fought with each other and broke all 8 pairs in half an hour. So, but they both can't see in school if they don't have glasses. And it was COVID, so how do you go? And so I think also, interesting things in life which drive purchase decisions, which we don't know. So it was the same thing. They said, okay, they looked at the temple that, oh, this one is wearing 5 to 8 years, this one is wearing 8 to 12 years. They reordered the same product, and they had a chat option where they said, can I get this product by tomorrow? And the plant could do that, and they got the products by next day.
Interesting. What stood out for me was, I walk into a store, but I feel the need to share it with my family and validation, and that's why I would go back and probably order online. So,
yeah, and also ordering online within the store. The whole idea of endless aisles, right? Where you are like, you are just never out of stock or never out of choices in a store. You just need to merchandise it really well so that the unique options are available. So if consumers wanted comfort of trial, then they got that comfort. But at the same time, you don't, again, going back to the concept of negative labor, you don't have to labor to, if I want a different color in it, I can just scan and place the order for the color that I like.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, now Abhishek, to you, the million-dollar question. What works better, having the same product price across all channels, which is your own website, marketplaces, offline branded stores, social commerce, or would you want to have more price competitive products and propositions for the online customer?
Uh, as you said, this is a debatable topic, and I think every brand and categories within brand they do it differently. My experience, and I've handled both FMCG roles as well as the D2C role, which I am handling now, is that each of the channels, as it is, whether it's a marketplace channel or an offline GT, modern trade, e-commerce, or your own website, each channels have got their own prerogative, and for a brand, the KPIs are to win market shares or category shares on that platform. So you have to be competitive on that particular place. So if you are deployed in modern trade outlets where you've kind of, if you're present in Reliance outlets or ABR outlets, so you have to be competitive there. Similarly, if you are on Flipkart or Amazon, so you have to gain shares. So if your competition is offering a face wash at a particular price points, you can't say that, I will not offer that price point. I'm only going to offer that price point on my website. The final objective for any brand is to win market shares, and whether it's your own website or it's marketplaces, they're all extended distribution partners for you, and you have to reach to consumers. Which is where the challenge for D2C brand is, how do you ensure that consumers come to your website? Because as I think one of you were saying that if you want to order a face wash, why not order it from Nykaa? Why to go to plumgoodness.com to order a face wash, even though it's one of the best sellers, right? Because the shipping experience, the shopping experience is much better. So for a D2C brand to ensure that first party data is acquired and consumers come to your platform, pricing is one of the levers. But I think there are different ways to manage that. So once you are clear that you have to gain market shares and you have to be competitive on all the channels, that pricing lever is gone. But what we know for a fact that 60% of consumers are deciding basis the prices. They go and check out prices across various marketplaces and then they go ahead and buy that. Even in our website, we see that shoppers will add product in the basket, but they won't buy because they know that the prices are going to go change during different period of the week, and they will wait for that particular day to offer that. That's why the concept of GWPs or PWPs, which is like a gift with purchase or a product with purchase, has become so important, especially in beauty industry. So that is one way to kind of ensure that how, as a D2C brand, you are going to compete with marketplaces, because finally marketplaces, I engage with marketplaces also. I can't be unfair to them. I can't say that no, I'm not going to give you that prices. That is only for my website, because you are expecting them to be fair with you. Similarly, you also need to be fair with them with respect to your approach towards any market. So normally, as D2C brand, we ensure that besides pricing, we work on these GWPs and PWPs and work on cart pushers. And the strategy needs to be very clear for a brand, especially the ones which this is in the D2 space. There are two sets of consumers. One is your strategy on new customers whom you want to acquire, and another set is the customers whom you already acquired, right? And how do you ensure that the pricing for each of these meets? You can't be unfair to loyal consumers who have been buying with you and not giving them good prices, and get only the good prices for new customer, which is what all of the brands do. That for new customer you always give higher discounts, get them, and then you forget old customers, which is where a bigger piece on your assortment strategy, assortment pricing used to come in. These are all like, I think one of the presentations talked about fundamentals will be fundamentals. And even in retail, when we used to do planning, the basic insight of how do you plan your assortment for a new customer and for a loyal customers in terms of value packs or in terms of something with respect to what they have been buying rests still with up with the brand. So that's what needs to be leveraged better for the D2C brand, and that's what I think we also do. If you go and check out website, you won't find lowest prices on my website. You might find it on Nika or on Amazon. But there are other reasons for customers to come and buy besides the experience of buying it directly from the website and certain points loyalty systems. But there are other experiences in terms of for loyal consumers, there are different ways to retain them with respect to assortment and pricing what they offer. And for new customers, obviously, you need to deploy the strategies which are there in the market, right?
Okay. Any examples any of you would want to share of a separate SKU or product itself for specifically tailor-made for a channel?
So actually, we've recently started doing this, and that is specifically for gifting solutions in India, right? Because again, we all know that gifting is a very, very competitive category in this country, right? And every time when people were benchmarking it with the website prices, that conversation went nowhere. So we've recently done that. We do a lot of special pack for our PR partners, because they just want to, when, like, let's say you get a gift of a box of Vadam teas with, let's say, a magazine subscription that you've taken, they want to show more value to the end subscriber, and we do custom packs for those kind of partners. So those are two examples that we are already doing right now.
Okay, all right. So Sneha, to you, what's the biggest challenge that you're trying to solve as a marketer?
So this is a problem that's probably unique to our brand, and that's because we as a brand have a global presence, right? So we technically sell in 110 countries. We are present on Amazon, our own website, offline, everything. One of the challenges that we are struggling with and trying to solve constantly is how do you create high quality content that can be used relevantly to the global audience? Because even though we may think that the audience in the West is very similar, there's a lot of nuances even between a customer who's American versus Canadian versus British versus German, right? Now for a brand like us, creating that amount of content sitting out of India, which appeals to them, is cost effective, is reusable, is on trend, is honestly the biggest problem that we're trying to solve right now.
Are you leveraging technology or just people to solve this problem?
So it's a mix of both. Of course, unfortunately, content is still a very people-led department, right? But there are interesting tech platforms that are helping us use text on a creative much more quickly than using a designer, right? There are platforms that are helping us integrate music or background scores that are trending in different markets, right? So I think tech can enhance your content. Can it really replace content creation? I have not come across such a solution so far.
Okay, Aanchal, what's the challenge that you're trying to solve right now?
So there are two, I think. One is, of course, that I spoke about earlier, which is, even as you are available across different kinds of channels, you have your own stores, you have your own app, in our case, we also have a home service where people, a trained optometrist comes to your house to check eyes, helps you choose frames, etc. I think one of the things is how do you understand people's needs, right? Different kinds of what is classically called user personas, right? Or consumer archetypes, and sort of constantly build your digital and offline solutions so that it constantly sort of makes sense to the consumers more than doing anything else, right? So if you want, like, hey, I have older parents at home and let me book a home service for them this Saturday. But how does the brand navigate that experience? How does the brand create that experience? How do I know that maybe Abhishek is someone who really loves trying on new frames and would like to actually buy a new frame whenever he likes something, but He wants to be sure of the fact it will look good on him, it will fit him really well. If he doesn't like it, he can return it and the money will be refunded, whatever, right? So what happens is eventually to create structured journeys, you have to let go of a lot of these things, even if you know them. So I think, and I think this is also the fundamental case for personalization. Um, and I'm sure there are far more intelligent solutions that are coming up and that I'm not aware of. But so far I've seen a little rudimentary, when it comes to true personalization, right, where you are able to instinctively understand a consumer's mindset, needs, and everything kind of works more instinctively rather than probed, rather than all of that. That is where I think brands which are able to do that will have like ultimate win in that. So that is one very important point. The second point is connected to Sneha's point, which is, in terms of not just content, I think content wise at least we are getting in a better place. I think we'll learn to do it even better, but we are okay, we are not bad. But the main thing is, how do you design an experience where if you're checking out a product, right, and a lot of, especially people in color cosmetics in US, etc., do that insanely well, where when you're checking it out, you pretty much know everything, which even you don't know you would have wanted to know. And it is simple, it is intuitive, it does not call for too much written literacy, but also the headlines, a lot of guys have really cracked it. And so what happens is, it's not just the buying part of it, but everything comes together for you that you buy it whether you have the need for it or not. So I think to create that kind of an experience, particularly in digital, is the key. And in offline also, like in offline, I think many of us take human assistance for granted. Ki, you have a question, somebody will answer. Iska price kitna hai? Iska ye kitna hai? But the idea is to actually even make offline as assistance free as possible, unless you have to get your eye test done. But as assistant free, that you are able to browse and make sense of things on your own. And you don't have these things that you're not asking anyone, but you also don't know, and therefore what? So for example, like, again, I think in India I've not seen that, but Sephora and couple of markets, like how they do the store experience and how it has done the whole app, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
So you're talking about, wow DIY experiences, if I understand correctly, right? So
Yeah, but in DIY, it's no DIY. Consumers don't want to do anything. Things should happen how they should. That's where the magic is. That's why I think very few brands have cracked it in the world so far. But then those are the brands, their customers just don't go anywhere else. Their customer doesn't go anywhere else because no platform brand, whether it is Amazon's or other beauty, they cannot give that experience to the customer.
yes, okay. And Abhishek, what's your challenge?
I think the challenges would be, I think every marketeer or a business head would be facing the challenges which is there for us. As I said, that consumers today and of tomorrow, they are going to be omnipresent, and what is important for brand is to be meaningfully available in these places. And how do you leverage data and insights from both the places, whether it's offline or online, to reach out to consumers? Because the challenge is acquisition. Challenge is how do you acquire new set of consumers at a CAC which you can justify, right? I think in D2C these two words are quite like omnipresent. That all your matrices, whether it's internal or whether to the investor, these are the two matrices which are talked most, and that is with respect to your own website, not with respect to the marketplaces which are there. So for us, the challenge is how do you get customers at a CAC which justifies that acquisition. And the second piece which we in Plum kind of concentrate most is retention. A lot of times we see, and since we are in the D2C space, we see a lot of talk is only on new customer. acquire customers. जो customer acquire हो गए उनका क्या करना है? You know,
I agree. I
yeah,
agree.
so
This is a very important
we
point.
we tend to forget them because the entire fraternity is running towards just acquire customers. There's so many vendors, they will give you traffic, they will give you.
It's till such time the money is coming, no?
Yeah. So as long as you have the investor money, obviously you keep burning that, and you know once you run out, then you know what happens to the business. So the second important challenge is obviously retention, and again, fundamentals are fundamentals. The fundamentals to retain those consumers are still there in place. How do you ensure that these customers who are buying from you, they come to your platform, they you know keep buying from you? And it's not only a problem of retail or commerce. The main challenge is your product. As a marketeer, as a brand of that particular product, how do you ensure that you spend enormous time in getting your product right, and a product which actually evolves with the need of time and solves the problem which a customer has. Otherwise, customer might come in for the first time, and you know we can get that traffic for the first time, but it's damn difficult to retain them. So I think acquisition and retention, which every brand, every business faces, these are still the two most important challenges for Plum. Thank you.
All right.
Samir, if I may add one, building on what Abhishek said, he spoke about data insights, right? One big problem that I'm sure not just me, every marketeer faces is how do you access human insights at a more frequent, meaningful level, right? Because
It's
today,
transaction data mostly, actually.
Exactly, right.
We say data and analytics, and most of the brands, not all, but it's actually transaction data.
Correct.
And there's as many actions, predictable actions you can do basis that kind of data.
yeah.
Good quality user research is rare, no?
Yeah, I mean, every brand is doing it for themselves, right? And we've all
Yeah,
all
but we
been
have
through
like
that
100 million
process.
customers now. You have to solve for things at scale.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, even if not for all, at least, for you want to know things for 50 million customers, like 60 million customers. It's a lot of people, just to add to Neha's point.
Yeah, no. So I think this whole, how do you really build a accessible platform for human insights? Not just, I mean, of course, let's solve it for India first, but really at a global level, because I'm sure more and more D2C brands will now start looking at global. A lot of them are already looking at it, right? But are the MarTech solutions that we are offering in this country really geared for that expansion? And can we actually make that happen sooner than the brands can? So I think that, in my view, is the second challenge that would be great if somebody can help us solve.
Okay, totally. So we discussed the nuances of what a D2C business is going from, right from cosmetics to eyewear to herbal teas. While they do sound different, but the fundamentals and challenges of this business remain similar at the grassroots level. Thank you so much for your time. We'd like to take any questions if you have.
All right, we'll take a couple of questions here. I see two hands up there, but we'll come to you first.
This question is for Sneha and Abhishek. As you evolve from D2C brands into full-fledged CPG companies that are omni-channel, like you said, right? And on the other hand, there are the incumbents who are now evolving into omni-channel by getting into D2C. A, what is your moat versus them, right? And B, how will you deal with, the quantum of consumer understanding and data that you spoke of, Sneha, as a D2C brand, the quantum of consumer understanding that you have, data that you have, is a lot richer than say what syndicated research will give a CPG brand. So how will you deal with that shift, and what will be your moat versus the incumbents?
So if I may just repeat your question, basically you're asking, as we become larger brands and there are newer brands coming into the category, how do we save ourselves from them?
from them, as also as you become larger and become more CPG, traditional CPG like, if I can call that, what is going to still remain your moat?
Got it. So I'll try and answer that. I don't think brands like us will ever become traditional CPG, right? Because being digital first is our DNA, right? So even if we become omni, I think just being present on digital platforms, just having that thirst for consumer data, having the knack for looking at it, I don't think we'll lose that. Of course, we'll need to start managing that at scale, right? So I don't foresee that as a challenge. Moving to your second question, as new brands come in, right, how do we safeguard ourselves? I think one of the philosophies that I always believe very strongly in is self-sabotage, right? The best way for you to stay ahead of the game is keep thinking that if I was challenging this brand, what would I do, right? And just keep, like, your game has to be up there all the time, right? So every year, don't just think incremental, think disproportionate, right? And as long as you're doing that, of course, there will be new players. There will always be somebody who's smarter than you, better than you. But I think the best you can do is not become irrelevant in that race. So I think just staying true and humble, saying, listen, if I don't do it, somebody else will do it, and hence I must do it. I think that has to be the mantra for every growing brand in the world, in my view.
I think it's on similar lines, but especially in the Indian market, in the beauty space, I will touch upon, because beauty as such in India is kind of exploding. There are a lot of brands, the bigger brands, there are brands which were traditional in a sense, but they have become digitally very, very savvy. Like, for example, L'Oreal, and we keep talking about L'Oreal, 40% of their turnover comes from e-commerce, and that was for China. And I'm sure in India also similar lines would be there. I think for D2C brands, for us to stay relevant, you need to know your consumers. A lot of times what we find in our research, in our interaction with consumers, is that for example, the skin tone of consumers in India, if you talk north versus south, west, east, is very different than a lot of MNCs which have a certain set of products. They might be adopting those products to these set of skin tones. But for Indian D2C brands, it's important to understand what is the actual need of those consumers and try to adapt yourself to those needs. You have to stay relevant to the consumer needs. And it will never be the case that you can assume that you have won the battle. It will never be the case, whether it's on the traditional side or on this side. You have to always ensure that you understand your consumers better. And second most important piece in this space is how do you ensure that you are agile or fast enough compared to our traditional organizations, because the processes of approvals which is there in traditional organizations, and I've lived that life, so I understand, is much larger. To just get a product rolled out, just to take decisions which are relevant and which can influence your go-to-market strategy. Those are key levers for, in my opinion, those are key levers for D2C brands to survive and thrive in this market. Thank you.
All right. So, well, then on that note, we call it a wrap to the final panel discussion. Thank you so much to all of our speakers. Can we have a round of applause to thank all our speakers here? Sameer and our panelists, I'm going to request you to come together for a group photograph.